is that Bruce Willis himself said Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Personally, I disagree with him.
You knew that you were going. And you're like, you know what? I don't really want Arron to go. It'd be more fun without him. And I was thinking, what better way than having the original trailer do that summary?
Dude, it's an old trailer from the 80s. There's gonna be that classic, like, this summer, there's 12 terrorists, 30 hostages, and 1 man.
Within this skyscraper high above the city, 12 terrorists have declared war.
That's why I gave it such a high score.
Merry Christmas and welcome to Backseat Directing,
Where we talk about movies, TV shows, comics, and more.
We're your hosts,
Andrew.
and Arron.
We put out new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
And on this episode, we're doing a movie review on Die Hard.
3, 2, 1.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother... Welcome, Andrew. It's Christmas. We're here. It's snowing outside. We got our fire pit going on behind me. You know, we're chilling. Yeah. We're chilling.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone who is joining us for this episode. It's a very special episode for this holiday season, and we are covering my personal favorite Christmas movie of all time, and that actually opens us up to an interesting debate here at the beginning of the episode.
Die Hard a Christmas movie?
So the one overwhelming piece of evidence against it, I will say, is that Bruce Willis himself said Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Now, I think this was at his roast. It was on Comedy Central at a roast that he said it. So it's like, they're all telling jokes. It's a silly, like, you know, it's funny. But he seemed like he believes it not to be a Christmas movie, but I respect the hell out of the man. But I feel like, personally, I disagree with him. What's your take?
I feel like it has to be a Christmas movie because it literally comes up every single year for the last, 30 plus years?
TV channels pay to play it this time of year because it's a Christmas themed movie.
It was not on streaming. I had to pay to rent it to watch it for this episode.
So here is my evidence as to why Die Hard is a Christmas movie, right? So number one, takes place on Christmas Eve going into Christmas morning, right?
Yep.
Huge right there. Plays Christmas music throughout the entirety of the movie.
Yeah.
Not
in the opener, in the closing,
and
throughout.
And the villain theme for like the German terrorists is Ode to Joy. Like it's a rewritten version of Ode to Joy by the composer for this movie, which is like iconic Christmas music from Beethoven. Also, the movie ends with like a heartwarming, happy family ending and instills family values like a Christmas movie. And I mean, it does.
And there's guns.
And there's machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun.
Yeah.
But also Santa's featured in the movie. There's like a Santa hat and they say ho, ho, ho. They say Merry Christmas a ton of times. It's a Christmas movie. Yeah. End of discussion.
I feel like the fact that it comes up every year at Christmas just solidifies the fact that it is in fact a Christmas movie, because there's how many movies out there that have Christmas in it but don't come up during Christmas time, you know? And there's a bunch of movies out there without Christmas in it that aren't brought up during Christmas time too. So
this is just, it's not as much of a Christmas movie as Home Alone.
Yeah.
But it is a Christmas movie. Yeah. It still has Christmas elements.
All right. Guns on the floor there. Careful.
Yeah.
It's pointed at you.
It can be turned.
So don't make me upset.
But I do want to take this moment at the beginning of the episode to thank everybody who joined us. It means a ton that you clicked on our video and that you're sticking with us through, you know, the first couple minutes at least. But we hope you'll stay for the rest of it.
And there's two things. First one, share the show with a friend. Traveling around, it's Christmas time. Maybe you're sitting around the tree right now and you're watching, or watching while we're driving. Show everyone the show. That helps us grow the community. Second thing, hit that subscribe button. It's so easy. It's like right there, you know? That's all you got to do. And we'll just keep putting out great content.
Every time you hit the subscribe button, Arron gets his wings.
Yeah, exactly. So don't deprive me.
You got like 600 pairs of wings.
Yeah. Okay, back to Die Hard. This is one of your favorite movies, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was thinking about it, and like, so here's the story of my experience this past week. Right, is Die Hard, because it is a Christmas movie, has come back into theaters temporarily for the Christmas season, and I had the good fortune of going to see Die Hard in Dolby Digital on an extra big screen with high quality sound and that high contrast, like special crisp blacks that the Dolby screens get. So I got to experience a movie formatted for Dolby that I would have never got to see because it came out in 1988 before I was even born. So like, such a special experience for me this week. I would go as far to say my favorite theater experience this whole year, even with some great movies coming out. And
Wow.
went to see Barbie three times in theaters, but still, this was like, I was kicking my feet like a little like child at school. Like it's
I am
exciting.
jealous because I didn't get to go because you gave me a 2-hour notice and it was an hour away. And I just got back home from traveling, so I wasn't able to join you, and I was very jealous because I had to watch it at my house.
They were
next
last
day.
minute plans. They were.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had a week to tell you.
They're like, no, this is how it went down. A week ahead of time, you knew that you were going, and you're like, you know what? I don't really want Aaron to go. It'd be more fun without him. And then you're like, all right, fine, but I have to invite him, right? Because he's my co-host.
I'm gonna have to talk about
What
it.
I'm gonna do is invite him
in an impossible time frame.
It's kind of like, when someone's like, hey, like, do you have like $1 or something? I'm like $1 short, and you like pull out your wallet and you're just taking your time trying to find it, and then someone else gets $1 out quicker than you. You're like, oh man, like I was about to help you.
It's exactly.
But I just didn't get there fast enough.
No, but the plans, we were going at 10 p.m. on a Sunday, so like I was kind of unsure of these plans. I was like, do I want to go another day? But I was worried I was gonna be too tired. But I was wide awake. I was so excited.
I
Like,
got a text at 1 a.m. saying that was so cool.
it was so like, that was when I got home.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun. Like, I wish more movies would go back into theaters because there's so many movies that came out that I love that came out before I was born, so I didn't even have a chance, or came out when I was little and couldn't go. Like, it's just such a cool experience to witness Die Hard on the big screen. And like, I'm like talking along, like there's only a few other people in this theater, right? But I'm talking along to some of the lines. I'm I'm gut busting laughing at like the part where the body falls out of the building onto Al Powell's car, Sergeant Al Powell, and like,
You used to watch this movie a lot with your
lot.
grandparents, right?
Yeah. Especially like this, me and my grandma, like Die Hard is our thing. And
Die Hard fans.
So they have the whole box set on DVD. And so I would go to my grandparents' house every other weekend, and me and my grandma would usually pick between a handful of movies. Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 3 are like at the top of that pile of movies. So I've seen it so many times with her. We can like, I mean, she can't quote it line for line. She's not good with that kind of stuff, but she loves it. She loves Bruce
like
Willis. Yeah. But I can quote Die Hard line for line, and like watching it in the theaters, it was such a special experience. I almost convinced myself that it's like a top 10 movie for me. Realistically, it's like top 25 of my favorite movies of all time. I know I say everything's my top 10. Die Hard, top 25 for sure.
We really need to just make a top 50 list for Andrew written
50?
out, and then we go over all those movies so we actually know what's on this list, because every movie seems to be
no
on this
I have
list.
my top 10 in my notes, and Die Hard's not in it. But it's like watching, like enjoying it so much in theater. Like, dude,
Maybe
I'm
like
telling
bumped
you,
it up a spot or two. And
it's still not top 10, but it's definitely top 25, top 20. And I was laughing so hard. I was getting like so excited at the big moments. Everything is like, it's all coming, but you're experiencing it in this new light and the new appreciation. So go see Die Hard in theaters if you have the chance. So much fun.
Yeah, I wonder how long it's in theaters for.
Yeah, probably not past the end of the year. I doubt.
I mean, it's already Christmas now, so maybe the next week or so.
They need to put more movies in rotation in
That'd be
theaters.
cool. Wouldn't it be cool to like see Jurassic Park in
I want
theaters?
to see Matrix. I want to see Matrix in theaters so bad.
That'd be cool.
But Jurassic Park would be another great one.
Like, I'm sure it's come back in theaters a few times, but
Probably like a special.
I've
like,
never seen it.
Yeah,
in
they need
theaters,
like more
that'd be really cool.
wide releases of these movies where it's in every theater. Like like another good one, like Star Wars, like A New Hope.
Right.
Excuse me, in theaters. How cool would that be? We
would be-
didn't get the chance.
That would be dope. Yeah, and I bet a lot of people would go too, and theaters are needing more people to go.
Yeah, when they start a new
You know?
Star Wars trilogy, they'll do it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we wanted to start this episode out too, because we're still kind of early on. We wanted to watch the trailer for Die Hard, which I don't know that I've ever actually sat through the trailer for Die Hard, other
I'm
than
so
like,
glad you mentioned that. So normally we start off our movie reviews with a summary, and I was thinking, what better way than having the original trailer do that summary?
there's an old trailer from the 80s. There's going to be that classic, like, this summer, there's 12 terrorists, 30 hostages, and one man.
That's so
It's,
true.
it's
An
like
action-packed adventure.
it's always
Christmas Day. You're so right. All right, well, let's go ahead and watch this trailer, and that will kind of kick off our Die Hard review. Let me pull it up here. Got a lot of buttons and cords going on. All right, here we. Oh, that took it off.
Why
full
did it
screen.
even go
Hold
on? It keeps playing all full screen. Like,
Here we go. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
not
All
the
right.
middle of the trailer. We got it.
It's Christmas Eve.
This is- it's the guy.
It literally started exactly how you said.
Blaine has come to see his wife.
He's got to see his wife.
Instead, he's going to have to save her.
He's saying everything that's happening.
Within this skyscraper high above the city, 12 terrorists have declared war.
They're about to be taught a lesson in the real use of power.
Alan
They're as
Rickman.
brilliant
Because
Like
I am
maybe.
interested in the $640 million in your vault.
as they are ruthless.
And I'm telling you, you're just going to have to kill me.
This dude?
Okay. We do it the hard way.
Brutal.
Now, the last thing McLean wants.
This guy is
To be a
spoiling
hero.
Like, would you have wanted to know that Mr.
But he
Chicago was going
doesn't
to
have
die
a
before you
choice.
like saw that scene?
Right? They're showing a lot. Bruce Willis. Die Hard.
Name's just as big as the title.
Channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Look how the cursor was out of the trailer.
He's inside? Who is he? Who are you then? You are most troublesome for a security guard.
Sorry, wrong guess, hon. Would you like to go for double jeopardy?
You really think you have a
Like to
chance
go for
against
double
us?
jeopardy and scarce
Oh,
can
boy.
really change.
Hey, hey. Just
Dude, they're showing so much.
Like the biggest explosions, the biggest fight scenes, like
I got some bad news for you.
with all the villains, all the heroes. Dude, that's a big part, like the RPG with the assault vehicle. Also, did they just show nudity in the trailer? They can't show it personally.
They did not.
They showed the
The poster?
the post. Yeah, it's like a Playboy page or something.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
This is
He's
way
an easy guy to like
That's like the best shot in the whole movie. Why are you gonna show that in the trailer?
and a hard man to kill.
I love those that part.
Bruce Willis.
And that's the biggest stunt
Die
in the
Hard.
movie right
Got
there.
invited to the Christmas party by mistake. Who knew?
The voice, dude. The voice is so funny. It's iconic.
Dude, you totally called it in your fake voice there. That was awesome.
Did you know that so the two big stunts in the movie, one being Bruce Willis jumping off the side of the building with the fire hose tied around his waist, iconic. He did that stunt. They filmed it. I watched an interview where he said like if they had showed him a video of the stunt before he did it, he wouldn't have done it because he would have been too scared. But like he jumped
On top of the building,
He
right?
said 20 to 25 feet was the length that he jumped to, like a big air bag, like a big air mattress below him. So I don't know, like probably on like a studio lot, and just to get the shot with his actual face in it. But they did that, and he said there was like a 40-foot plume of fire from an explosion behind him too. So like
Jeez.
he said he did a lot of his own stunts in the movie because he thinks it's cool when you can see the actor's face in the movie, like all of us do.
Yep.
And then Hans Gruber did a 20-foot fall also. Alan Rickman
Dang.
did a 20-foot fall. So there's an iconic story behind that where the ending of the movie where he unclasps Holly's watch and Hans like falls. You see that like great shot of his face and that surprise. It's like genuine terror because they told him they were going to go on 3, 2, 1, go. And they 3, 2, 1 dropped him instead of giving him like the go cue. So he was actually shocked when he did the
that's
fall,
funny.
and he like took a real 20-foot fall, which is awesome. Like he was,
It looked really good.
yeah, no, the facial expressions are
Yeah.
amazing. Just the like,
Yeah.
it's all like the whole
The only
transition
thing I
of
was
emotion
thinking
is
in that
there.
moment is like if you were to suddenly collapse, I feel like you would have automatically like pulled the trigger, you know, because you're like trying to grasp.
Yeah,
But other than that, I mean, like it did look very genuine.
yeah,
That's really cool.
the acting is really good. I mean, it's real.
You know who else did their own their own stunts? Me
John
and
Wick. Oh, that's true.
In our
That's
sword
true.
mill, we did
Yeah.
our own stunts.
Dude, I can't wait for people to be able to see it. Hopefully, the beginning of next year.
Hopefully, yeah.
But
I mean,
Yeah.
Just got to tell our editor to hurry up, you know?
Aaron's the editor. But yeah, it's a pretty good stunt. A pretty good stunt in there. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Yeah. Behind the scenes, we'll have to put out too.
For our first time,
Yeah.
not too shabby.
But that was really that really makes this movie special. That they got those shots with them really doing
Yeah.
it.
So if you didn't catch on to what the story is about for Die Hard, basically, this guy goes to a party and it ends up being in the middle of a heist. And he is a cop from, is he from
New
he's
York.
Not, he's from New York.
He's a New York cop.
Yeah. And he's in California, in Los Angeles. And there's what, 20, 30?
There's 12 terrorists.
No.
Yeah. There's
It
a
seems
lot.
like a lot more, doesn't it?
Al Powell says he's the reason you're dealing with 7 terrorists instead of 12.
Yeah, you're right. And he basically Rambos it out, and takes them all
Go,
down.
yeah. Which is funny you should say that because the role of John McClane actually went across a lot of different actors, right? So the part was originally written with Frank Sinatra in mind, which we'll get into in the source code. But Frank Sinatra was considered. Arnold Schwarzenegger was considered, which is funny because there's a line about Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie, and Sylvester Stallone. Rambo was considered for this movie too, amongst like a whole like slew of other people. I think Richard Gere was considered too, and it ended up going to Bruce Willis, which is funny in
I feel
hindsight.
like it's a good fit.
You can't picture anyone else looking back, right? Like imagine this movie with Arnold. It's a totally different movie, not necessarily bad, but it's just totally different with Arnold or Stallone. Like
I feel like this is believable in the sense of like, oh, he's just a guy.
that's
Like,
and that's
like you're it's relatable.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
what
oh,
makes-
like
yeah.
he's just a cop. Like he knows a little bit of like tactics and stuff, but like he's just a regular guy. Like
and by just
it
a
makes
co-
you feel like you could do it, right?
Let me just defend in advance you saying just a cop because I feel like that could be taken out of context. But what Aaron's saying is just a cop, not like a
Terminator.
special ops Terminator
Yes.
superhero robot
Yeah.
machine. Like he is something that is human.
Yeah.
He's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando is like he kills like 200 people. It's
Arnold Schwarzenegger in real life is not real.
yeah. Well, which is why Bruce Willis is such a good fit for this. I mean, he's in good shape, but he
Yep.
looks like an attainable shape. He looks like a regular guy,
Yeah.
but he's a regular guy who is like quick on his feet, He's the stuff you see him do in this movie, like using the strap of the gun to try and like shimmy down the air vent, using the axe to hold up in the elevator. Like he's clever. He uses the computer to connect
He
the
is
C4.
brave. He's got a pair of balls on him.
That
doesn't
too.
he?
Yeah. Yeah. Just ingenuity, intelligence, and like guts.
Yeah.
Like is what's moving this guy forward. And he's tough as nails, but like
Yeah.
he's taking on 12 guys, still like an inhuman thing that he's doing. 12 guys trained with machine guns and everything, but it's just a lot more like grounded and gritty because he's a New York cop. He's not like a Navy SEAL,
Right. Okay, so this movie came out in '88, and it's rated R. It's 2 hours and 12 minutes long. Kind of felt a little shorter than that. And then IMDb has it at an 8.2 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 94% for the critics, with 87 reviews, and then 94% audience score of 250,000 plus. So tied there.
Those are
in agreement.
Those are incredible stats and deserved. An 8.2 on IMDb is really high. I think it's in the top like 120. I think it's the 119th highest rated movie on IMDb, which is like
In
really,
comparison,
really good.
There's millions of movies.
Yeah, it's really, really high.
Yeah. The budget for this movie, which it's crazy to see budgets from 30, 20 years ago in comparison to like what budgets for movies are now. This was $28 million, which I feel like was a decent budget back then. And it brought in quite a bit more than that, $142.5 million in the box office.
That's a really good success, wouldn't you say? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's huge.
That's like their budget multiplied by like 5 almost. So that's a
Yeah.
really big success. Also interesting about this movie, I just found this out, came out in July, on July 20th, 1988. Like the movie takes place on New Year's into Christmas. They must have had, the thing is, they had a big decision is like, put this out in the summer where blockbuster action movies
right.
do really well, or put it out at Christmas time when the movie takes place. And they probably had a lot of faith in this movie doing well financially.
Christmas in July.
So they did Christmas in
Christmas in July.
I think it was a smart
Coming
choice.
to you this summer.
Based on how much money it made, I'm sure it was a good choice.
I mean, it kicked off what, 4 movies?
5 total in
Okay,
the
so
series.
4 more.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it did good enough.
Yeah.
And then our next segment that we like to go into when we're doing a movie breakdown is the creators, both in front of and behind the screen. So Andrew, What do you got for us? Who made this movie?
So this movie's directed by John McTiernan, who is a household name for doing movies like this and Predator. He is
Stud.
a staple of the action genre, a true legend. Now, who else is behind the camera? We have writing. Roderick Thorpe is credited because he wrote the novel that the movie's based on, and then Jeb Stewart and Stephen E. D'Souza are also credited as the other writers for this film. Now, and before I go to our cast, I want to see our music and cinematographer. The
And
cinematographer,
editor. Don't forget the editor.
of course,
He's valuable too, or she.
Cinematography is from Jan de Bont, and the music is by Michael Kamen, who is a funny story with Michael Kamen. I mentioned Ode to Joy. The director, John McTiernan, requested Ode to Joy be used for the villain for this movie. And Kamen was like, please don't make me do this. Like, he's like, I'll use any other classical composer, but don't make me use, he was against using Beethoven for an action movie. He thought it was like sacrilege. And then McTiernan pointed out to him that Beethoven was used by Stanley Kubrick for one of his movies. I think Clockwork Orange. And, you know, obviously having respect for the legend Stanley Kubrick, he was like, okay, we can use it for this movie. But there's a lot of bias against action movies in general that you see. I mean, even Alan Rickman didn't want to do this movie because it was his first feature film and he had done stage work and things like that. That's where they found him, was on the stage, and they were like, this is our Hans Gruber. They tried to convince him to do the role. Initially, he was like, I don't want to be my first feature film role to be a villain in an action movie. It sounded cheesy to him.
Sign me up.
But there might have been some truth to what he said, because he kind of got typecast as a villain from then on. Like, Snape is like a villainous character in a lot of his other roles. So he might have been a little bit typecast from this role, but only because he did such a good job, because he was hailed for his Hans Gruber performance. But our editor for this movie, two editors, John F. Link and Frank J. Arioste. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. But onto our people in front of the camera. Our cast for this movie includes, as we've mentioned, Bruce Willis as John McClane, Bonnie Bedelia as Holly Gennaro McClane, Reginald Vell Johnson as Sergeant L. Powell, Paul Gleason as, I think he's like Deputy Chief, Dwayne T. Robinson, Devereaux White as Argyle, which, oh my God, he's so good in this movie. He's just very charismatic. William Atherton plays Thornburg, who is that like hated newscaster that none of us like after watching this movie. Hart Bachner is Ellis, another hateable character who does coke and brags about giving the watch to Holly. James Shigetti is Takagi. Alan Rickman obviously is Hans Gruber. Why is he so low on the list on IMDb? I don't know. Alexander Godunov is Carl, who, interestingly, he's Russian and not German. Most of the villains in this movie are not German. Only like out of the 12 terrorists, I think like 3 of them spoke broken German. The casting department supposedly prioritized like big, strong people, villainous looking characters instead of like true German.
Not gonna lie, I thought they were Russian
the whole time. Yeah, they're supposed to be German. 10 out of the 12 of them are over 6 foot tall, so that's why they were cast, not based on like being true to the character. But yeah, that's our people who are in front of the camera. So I mean, I think that despite that, like, they sell it pretty well. You know, you've got some like German lines in there, like the line where Hans Gruber's trying to speak German to Carl, and then he's like, "What?" He's like, "Shoot the glass." Like, I feel like watching this as an adult, like, doesn't which I've seen it a bunch of times as an adult too, but doesn't Hans Gruber have like more of a British accent? I know like Alan Rickman is British, so I just feel like I didn't hear like he didn't sound German.
No, I don't think so.
He does at one point say benefits of a classical education. So maybe he was like classically educated growing up in England. And so maybe he lost a little bit of his German accent.
Yeah, maybe.
It could be.
I mean, he is in America, so maybe he hasn't been in Germany in a long time.
I feel like the German accent pops up like when he says his own name. And then like maybe at the very end when he's like, how did you say? Yippee-ki-yay. And like that's like the only time you like hear like a little bit of German.
Yeah. Did you know this movie was nominated for 4 Oscars?
4?
4.
Oh, so
Isn't that awesome?
I don't want to be cast as a villain in an action movie. Movie that got nominated for 4 Oscars. That's crazy.
Jeez, man.
You would never think this.
Best sound, best film editing, best effects and sound effects editing, best effects and visual effects.
Yeah, some of those I don't think are categories anymore, because this is from like the Oscars would have been in '89, the movie's from '88. So at least one of those isn't a category anymore, I don't think. But that's insane.
I'm not sure which one wouldn't be.
One of the sound ones is different, because now they just have best sound editing and sound mixing, and that's not the name of one of those.
Yeah, it says best effects, sound effects editing.
Yeah, they probably just changed one of those to sound mixing.
But yeah, 4 Oscar nominations, and I'm behind it. Yeah, I like all of those things. Do you think they should have deserved more nominations, less? Where do you think it?
Give my boy Alan Rickman Best Supporting. Give my boy Bruce Willis Best Actor.
Okay. All right. Before we go into all this,
maybe don't give it to them, but I feel like the Academy doesn't recognize action movies. Like, nominate them because their performances are both really good.
No, yeah.
Dude, when McClane is like crying, talking to Al Powell, he's putting on a acting clinic. He's talking to nobody, by the way, right? When you're looking at his performance, which we'll get into performance. Let's talk about it when we get into performance.
Yeah. Al too, like when he was talking about how he shot a kid,
by accident.
Like, oh,
it comes out of nowhere. Oh. He's like, "What'd you do? Like crash your car?" I shot a kid, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
Oh snap!
Oh my god! That part kind of
gives you chills, right?
That part kind of aged poorly, to be honest. Like that's.
But it happens. Like I was in Police Explorers as like a teenager, you know, where it's kind of like ROTC but for cops, and one of the cops was telling like a story like that. Like a cop shot this kid, and he had a toy airplane in his hand, and it looked like a gun, and he shot him, and it was dark.
It's real.
It
touches on real themes, which movies shouldn't ignore, but it's a gut punch when like it's just tears you in pieces because you like Al Powell so much, and then you're like, oh, like he made this mistake. It's a horrible mistake, and it's like, should he be a cop still? Like, he's only doing desk work, but it draws into question a lot of deep moral questions.
It's tough, yeah, and like I'm sure he had a suspension. How long is that for? But that's a different story for a different time.
The LAPD has had a long history of being very criticized, and this movie does not take it easy on them, honestly. Like everyone from Dwayne T. Robinson, the like deputy chief, to like
I feel like the police in this movie did not do a good job.
Other than John McClane, it's basically like a roast fest for all of the other police.
Yeah, they did not do
and the FBI. They
at all.
They roast the FBI too.
Yeah.
They're like,
okay, so
dude, the part where they're like 20% civilian casualties, I can live with that. Like,
yeah, brutal, right? That's something I wanted to talk about when we break down the different categories, which we normally do in a movie review. If this is your first time watching one of our movie reviews, we break movies down into 6 categories with different amount of ratings to equal a as much as possible biased review of the movie. And
this one has bias in it for me.
Yeah.
If this is your first episode, I have bias.
Yeah. And the first category is story. Out of 10 points, Andrew, what did you give it?
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
An 8 out of 10?
I can defend it. I can explain why too. What'd you give it?
Explain it first. So
I gave it an 8. We're going to see if you're going to change your score.
No, I just want to see why you gave it such a high score.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10 on a few reasons. And I decided I would have to back this up, I know, because it's close to my heart. But I think that this movie is unique in the action genre. If you think about the action genre, what are the 2 most common things you're going to get? You're going to get a revenge story, number 1, or you're going to get something with a spy, usually a spy who's been like burned by their government somehow. So like John Wick, revenge story. Watching James Bond, you're going to be watching Burned by the Government, Mission Impossible, Burned by the Government. Like this was something where it's a unique, they took a guy, put him in a fish out of water situation. Now he's in this building where a hostage situation is going on. He's got to respond to it. And there's all these complicating factors, like his wife is there. He has this strange relationship with his wife. John McClane is a complex character. In a lot of ways, you could argue that he is a bad person, and that's all in strength of the writing. So they make you love him with Bruce Willis's charisma, but he didn't have faith in his wife. He let his family move across the country. He didn't come with them. As soon as he comes there to meet them, he's already like taking jabs at his wife, who clearly misses him. He's complicated in the sense that I feel
like that is so real, though.
It's very real.
Like, it's very understandable to have those feelings on both sides, right? Yeah. Like, hey, I'm a woman. I have great opportunities in my career.
Well, she's definitely making more money than him too.
Yeah, like I'm growing, and you're not. I just want your support. I want you behind me. And he's like, well, you're moving across the country, you know. Like, what about me? What about the kids? Like,
he's got his own career.
Yeah,
if he's not making.
You're thinking just about yourself here. Like, it's like 2 sides, and like being in a relationship for as long as I have too. Like, I feel both sides of it. You know, like. I've had conversations like that, you know, and it just really grounds the whole situation together.
Yeah, but to me, when he's first seeing her, she's like I missed you. And he's like, you didn't miss my last name, huh? So like, he's very bitter. He's, you know, he's hardened.
Like,
He's,
it's so real. I feel like I'd say the same
Yeah.
thing if I got to that little kiosk where it's like the first time ever touching a touch screen, by the way. And he clicks on it and his wife's name isn't there. It's like, you're across the country right now. Why don't you at least have why don't these people know you're married?
Yeah, but and then in her defense, like, is he calling her? Is he checking up on her and the kids? Like,
Yeah.
is he showing an interest? They didn't even seem sure that he was going to show up. That she thought he was
Yeah.
going to miss his flight. Like, she didn't have a lot of faith in him coming,
Yeah.
which tells us a lot about what we need to think of through, you know, the view through her eyes is he's not reliable. He's not showing that much of an interest, is what I would say. And
Yeah.
but he's also willing to put his life on the line at a moment's notice for her. He clearly wants this relationship back with this family, even if he's like this kind of stoic, hard-boiled character who's not going to wear it on his sleeve. So I think he's a complicated character in terms of an action movie. He's not like our typical saint who does everything right. You know, he's not like just somebody in a bad situation. He's not a perfect guy.
He's relatable.
He's relatable. Yeah.
Just from like when we were talking about in the beginning of the episode of the casting of the character, you know, like he's relatable both in appearance, stature, but then also story.
I just think that they got really creative with the story, with the environment he's put in, with his response to it, and with the character itself. I love the way that John McClane talks to himself. It adds a lot to the story. I love his personality because he's just so like, it's a lot of characters do it now, like the MCU funny, like the sarcastic, but he's like, he's mouthy. He has a lot of attitude. It's like, he's funny, but at the same time, he's also like quiet and reserved in a lot of situations too. And then his like emotions boil over, like when he's got this, and just like the one scene where he's talking to the guy and he's like, "You won't shoot me. You're a policeman. The policemen have rules." And he's like, "Yeah, my captain keeps telling me that." Like, he exudes this confidence, and they built this archetype of characters that we come to know and love. Like, it's one of the action movies. It's one of the core action movies of the past like 50 years, you know what I mean? I feel like it's truly something special, and I couldn't put it lower than an 8.
All right, you make a good argument. However,
For the time period, too, you got to think. So many movies have copied this.
Here's my score. I gave it an 8 out of 10. So same as you, for all the same reasons. I thought it was very well written. The script was good. You know, the dialogue, I mean, cheesy at some points, but it fit, you know? Like,
It's cheesy at some points.
Felt,
Happy Trails, Hans. Like, it's a little cheesy, but I like the cheesy.
People are cheesy.
Yeah.
You know, like it felt natural. It didn't feel forced at all. And like you said at the very end there, like you have to know the time too that this movie was made. And that kind of goes into the factor of the rating for this.
One critique I've heard of the writing is like some people don't like people making jokes in like high stress situations, but isn't that some realism to that? Don't we make jokes when we're going through like traumatic circumstances? You have like, if you have like, maybe somebody close to you dies and then like, you need to make light of some
defense mechanism.
you know, like, you know, maybe you make somebody else laugh and that makes their day a little like, he's going through like.
Everyone's stressed at work and you pop a joke, you know, and bring the atmosphere back up a little bit, bring the good vibes in.
There's some realism to that. Him like, being what does he say? He's like, I know what a TV dinner feels like. That's an iconic movie line. Like he's joking around because he's probably at his stress limit.
Yeah.
You know, like
probably definitely
falling down an elevator shaft, getting explosions, getting shot at. His wife is being held hostage somewhere. Like it's a crazy scenario. So I think it's good as hell. I think it holds up so well in a way that a lot of action movies really don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think it held up fantastic.
My fiance, who's very critical of like this kind of cheesiness, she was like, "Yeah, that movie holds up better than like a lot of movies do." And like, she definitely doesn't always like the movies that I like.
All right, our next category is acting. So this can kind of go into like, of course, the line trail, how the characters look, you know, how they handle themselves in the skills that their character is supposed to know. And then also you can kind of include like stunts a little bit, you know, like how well did they sell the stunts and stuff.
Physical acting.
Andrew, I'm going to lead to you to go first as well, since this is your movie here. Out of 10 points, what'd you give it?
Before I give my score, I'm going to take this kind of halfway point to say again that I want to thank the audience so much for listening to this episode, our special holiday episode. We really appreciate it. Make sure that you like, and following is huge. If you follow and subscribe us, it makes a big difference. But with that said, I'm just going to get that quickly out of the way and move on with my rating for acting. So I give this movie another high score. I give it an 8 out of 10 for acting.
Oh man.
Largely on the backs of
To not leave you hanging, 7.5.
okay, close. I give it an 8 out of 10. It's an action movie, but with some really great performances. I mean, I think this movie doesn't work without Bruce Willis doing as good a job as he did with
Agreed.
all of his line deliveries. Like, what do you think I'm doing, lady? Ordering a pizza? Like his line delivery in this movie, he just gets it. Like that he understood the assignment.
Right.
Like he got this character. I think I saw something on IMDb. I don't know if this is true, but in the trivia section it said John McClane has always been Bruce Willis's favorite character that he's played. And I could see that because he
makes sense.
gets it. And he's so on with everything in this movie. He's also filming a TV show he was in at the same time called like Moonlighting. It was like, I think one of his like starting things was this show, Moonlighting. And so he was really exhausted filming this. So they actually beefed up some of the roles of other characters in the movie to like give him more rest time and off-screen time.
Doesn't that seem like really hard?
Yeah.
To film like two shows or movies at once? Like,
oh, dude. The Marty McFly story is crazy. When Michael J. Fox was filming Marty McFly, he was also doing like the show he was on, Family Ties. I think whatever the show is called. And he was literally just working like day and night. He was taken in a
day and night.
He was chauffeured in a car where he would sleep on the way to the set of Back to the Future. Like
crazy.
That's nonstop work.
Yeah, and days on movie sets are not short. they're like probably 12 hours minimum, for most of the cast.
And you got to bring the energy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But that aside, I want to talk about the performances in this movie. Bruce Willis, I already said, fantastic. Should have been nominated for Best Actor, in my opinion, just because it doesn't have to be a super dramatic role. But even in the dramatic segment he has in this movie, namely like that speech he has with Al Powell, he's talking to him on the phone. He's saying like, I need you to tell my wife that John is sorry. She's heard me say I love you 1,000 times. She's never heard me say I'm sorry. And he has tears welling up in his eyes. It's emotional and he is killing it. And you have to think about how difficult his performance is in this movie through the lens that the main people he's interacting with, he's not actually getting to play off them at all. He's on the walkie with both Hans and Al Powell throughout the movie, his two biggest relationships in the movie other than Holly. And the whole time, he has 2 scenes in the whole movie where he interacts with Hans Gruber. The scenes where he finds him checking the detonators, and at the end where Hans has Holly hostage. And he has like 1 scene with Al, which is at the very end after he leaves the building, where they're actually in person.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie, those 2 actors probably aren't even on set when he's delivering his lines. He's just delivering them to
A high
the camera.
possibility. There could be someone on the phone. There could be someone like off camera.
Someone's probably
his
reading lines
and
with him.
stuff. But he's definitely not reacting to the performance of the other character that we're seeing on screen.
Yeah. And so he talked about this in an interview I saw too, where it was a totally different part of acting he had to delve into because he's used to other roles where he could play off somebody. And even outside of just those conversations, a lot of the movie is him talking to himself, you know, climbing through air vents or like sneaking around in stairwells, and he'll be like mumbling to himself, like, well, let's get together, let's have a few laughs. Like it's just him talking to himself fills a lot of dead space, which is what I like in the writing. And it's like a personality trait. So it's not like a crutch in my opinion.
It was well done and it wasn't overdone.
Yeah.
Too. Like it wasn't like he was talking the whole time, just narrating what we already see. Kind of like the trailer. The trailer was literally saying what the visuals were showing.
That was a staple of the time period. Brother. But Hans Gruber's performance, dude, Alan Rickman absolutely crushed this role. Like he's iconic as Hans Gruber. The lines are great and the delivery is amazing. Al Powell, you love him throughout. Argyle's great.
Like you said, that there was emotion, right? There's action, there's high stress, but then there's the emotion. That's something that we wanted to see in the latest Mission Impossible. We wanted to see Tom Cruise like get emotional about something to show that there's real stakes here. Like it doesn't have to just be crying to cry, but like let me see how the character really feels. Like show me that you're not a robot.
Yeah,
and they did that really well in this.
It lends to him,
show,
like you said, to him being human.
Yeah.
Like humans struggle, like with all these different stress factors that he's dealing with.
Now there was a few like stuff with the guns and stuff that bothered me a little bit. Like one, Bruce Willis kept switching the guns in his hand over and over, which you just don't do that. I mean, I get it if you're like peeking around a corner and you have to put it in your left hand so you get a good angle or whatever. But like he's just loosely like throwing it hand to hand. I counted like it's got to be like 15 plus, like over under 15. Like it's a safe bet to go over on that one. And then also like firing from the hip, like
That's all.
just
Yeah.
pull it up to where we can so you can aim. You know, like
Hans. Hans.
Also, I thought it was a little silly, and I'm pointing out all the silly things, but then we can talk about all the like smart things that he
Yeah.
did. But the silly thing of like how he's firing the gun on the roof to get everyone off, like you clearly look like the terrorist here. They're in a helicopter. They're gonna shoot you.
Yeah,
like,
but what was the quickest way for him to get them all off the roof? There's
I don't
explosives
know,
on the roof.
2 shots,
Yeah.
not the whole clip.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like
Hey, it's easy to critique. You haven't been trying to get people off a
I
roof
get
before
you,
it explodes.
In hindsight, I get it. I get it. I follow me or you're gonna die. He didn't try that, you know.
Come with me if you
but-
want to live.
But let's talk about some of the smart things he did, right? Like you already mentioned, like putting the stuff in the elevator to keep the door open, or like getting in top of the elevator and listening to the guards. He was writing notes on his wrist
Of their
you know,
names,
like
yeah.
he got a walkie-talkie. He was able to get other guns and ammunition. He connected the dots of like why was Hans down? Why was Hans up there? You know, and then he went up there, found the explosives. Like he was a smart character, you know. But it also wasn't like, how did he figure that out? You
Yeah.
know, like we were there with him as he was going through these steps.
Yeah, he's very smart like throughout the whole movie. And that's what I think is so cool about this movie is he doesn't just like defeat 12 terrorists off of like gumption and like
Yeah.
bravery. It's like
Even when he's fighting, like he's losing the fights at some points, you know, which I think is how fights go, you know, like it's not always one-sided for the hero.
well,
you
and
know?
he has to use like his wits to get out. Like when he shoots the handle off of that door, when Carl like has him pinned down on the roof, he's like, all right, I'm not going to win this gunfight. And then he like shoots the handle off the door, uses his gun to stop the fan so he can get through. And then he's like running in circles, like trying to find an escape route. And he ends up finding the air vents, like that shaft down to the air vents. So like he's just very clever. And I love that he uses his intelligence. Like 1 against 12 it would be unrealistic for him to beat them head on. It would turn into like Commando or Rambo, you know?
Yeah. No, it was very well done.
And he is patient too. Like in the beginning, he goes up a floor and he sees like 2 guys that don't see him.
Yeah.
He's not like, oh, I'm gonna get the jump on these guys and shoot him. He's like, all right, let me go up a floor, try to like alert the emergency
Take
responders.
the gun to his back.
Yeah, a bunch
you know,
of
at the
clever
end,
stuff.
Like, yeah. Our next category, Andrew, is my favorite category that we talk about, and that is cinematography. This encapsulates the camera movement, the composition, the coloring, the editing, the lighting. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. It's basically all the visuals that we see in terms of capturing what is on stage, capturing these performances. How did the camera movement, editing, lighting help tell the story of Die Hard? What did you give this category? This is also out of 10 points.
I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
7.5. Okay. Do explain.
So I think that there's nothing absolutely groundbreaking in terms of the lighting or cinematography. I think that the blocking for the fighting is
30 years ago, times have changed. Technology
Yeah.
is different. Lights, cameras, everything's better now.
But they use practical effects. John McTiernan said that a lot of the explosions on the outside of the Nakatomi Plaza were real. So explosions outside and around the top of the tower, they used real
It
fire.
all looked
So
fantastic.
it looks really good. Even the explosion up the elevator looks great. Visually, the special effects look really good. I like the shots inside the air vents each time. Like when that shot from Carl like almost hits him and you see the hole steaming and it like the shot shows John like just how close it was to John. I think they do a really good job with those tight shots, and like they also use the shots like down the elevator and air shafts and things to create a lot of anticipation and suspense. Like this movie is a nonstop action thrill ride, but it's also a lot of like edge of your seat, like gripping the arms of your chair. You know, is he going to fall?
It has good pacing, which goes into editing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of the script and stuff, but you have to know like when you're filming and editing, it's like you have an idea in your head, but then you have all of this footage that you have to put at the right times, the right pacing. There's a bunch of takes. You have to pick which takes work the best. You have to figure out who you want to cut to when they're talking on the phone and stuff. And they did a great job building that suspense. They did a great job showing the interactions between characters. Something that I really liked was all the lens flares that we got.
A lot,
You
right?
know,
I
that
noticed, yeah.
they're really cool, and they like you see like these oval lens flares, especially when they were like outside,
Outside with the
showing like the
lights.
helicopters
Yeah.
fly and stuff. Like all that stuff was really cool and unique. And I gave this a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Kind of for the same reasons as you said. Like it's not groundbreaking in the sense of like what we see today with the dynamic camera movements and stuff like that, but it was probably back then like fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, like
Also, filming action is hard to do. Like the fight scenes, like the fight with Carl and the fight with Carl's brother
yeah,
and the
that's another
construction
thing.
floor.
We never got lost in the room of the fight, you know, and like even modern movies today have a hard time doing that, you know, like Black Panther Wakanda Forever in their opening scene, I think did a terrible job at editing the fight to show us like who is who, where are they in relation to the other person that they're fighting and the other people in the room and stuff. This movie did a great job of showing the action,
Yeah.
which is not easy to do, right? Because you have to think most times, a lot of the times, you're filming with one camera at a time. So all those angles that you see, it's one camera. So that means when they're editing it together, they have to piece these parts of the action together where it looked closest. But then everything in that shot has to be good.
Yeah.
And then that's something tough that I've found with just editing our short film that we're working on, you know, is like finding those little takes of like, okay, this take matches in location, like our arm is in this spot, but then when I cut to this camera angle, our arm's in a different spot, so like I can't use that clip just yet. I have to cut a little bit later or something like that.
Little word called continuity for the but yeah, it's definitely really hard to do. And this movie is, I think, edited fantastically. Action movies, in my mind, I'm not, a professional editor, but action movies seem like the hardest thing to edit. And I think that we don't get lost at all, like you said. And like things like them tumbling down the stairs, it looks great. Like piecing from one to the next, you don't see the stuntman's face, things like that. It's just like there's really no like unique lighting to this movie where you could look at. I might be able to look at any shot and recognize it because I've seen the movie so many times. But to where like you watch it once or twice and you could recognize any shot based off very particular shots.
I feel like the lighting is very like realistic.
Yeah,
which fits the movie well.
I love how when he lights the lighter in the air vent, like
A light turns on.
Yeah, you can clearly like they use a separate light, but it's just like your mind connects the source of light to the lighter you see on the screen.
People that aren't in this world of filming and editing like probably didn't even notice.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that lighter is lighting him up, and that's what they were going for.
Yeah, then they're not lighting the scene with a lighter. That would be insane.
Yeah, a lighter does not produce
nearly
much
that. But yeah, it's good. You know what I mean?
Well, it got nominated for editing.
It got nominated. Did it get nominated for special effects too?
No, it says best effects, sound editing effects. I think that's all like one category. So like best effects, visual effects. It's like one category. It's just labeled weird, right? All right, our next category, Andrew, is sound design. So
Sorry. Before we go on, I also wanted to say too, the shots like looking down at the ground, they do a really good job with like blur. They blur like when you're at the top of the building or when Hans Gruber's falling out. They kind of have this blur effect to the ground below where it's like the ground level and the cop cars and everything, and it helps hide the green screen really well. I like even now, like how many years later, like 35 years later, I think it still like holds up really well because they made those choices. It's like the same thing with Jurassic Park. It's like you don't try to pretend the special effects are perfect. Instead, you
plan them out. The very little details. They do a really good job of showing perspective in terms of like how high they're up in the building and how low everyone is on the ground and showing the relationship to what floor he's on. Good last point there for cinematography. Did I say mine? I think I did. 7 out of 10 if I did.
Yeah.
All right, our next category is sound design. This also encapsulates a lot. And what people don't realize with sound design is that it's 50% of the viewing experience. And like that sounds weird, right? Because you don't see sound design. But when that's gone, you notice.
Yeah.
But when it's there, you might not notice it. So sound design includes the soundtrack that you hear. It includes the score. And the difference between those is soundtrack is like songs and the score is like the
originally composed music.
Yeah. And then it also has like the Foley work, which is like the sound effects, you know, of him lighting the lighter or his footsteps or all that sound.
The big
is
one is
not
the gunfire.
Yeah, all that sound is not there. They're just recording audio. And then probably after the fact, either on location or in a room somewhere, recording all the sound effects of everything.
I honestly think sound effects is one of the things that has taken the movie industry like the longest time to like get to like really high quality.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
There's-
Like, because you would still hear really cheesy sounds into like the 80s and 90s, even though they were making like movies with great scripts, great acting, and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
sound design maybe caught up like in the 2000s,
Yeah.
like late 90s, 2000s.
Right. Like in our short film, I know we're referencing short film a lot, but that's because we want to build hype. And two, it like really gives us a lot of insight of how like movies are made. Like we're doing it on such a small scale, and these movies are doing it on such a big scale. And I just want to show appreciation to everyone who's able to make a feature film because it's an incredible feat. You know.
Speaking of feet, I'm barefoot for this episode, just like John McClane.
Oh no, Andrew, that's gross.
The dogs are out.
Get them out of here. That's such a funny.
Million
transition,
terrorists
man.
in this world, and I gotta kill the one with feet smaller than my sister.
But anyways, like there's an opening shot in our movie where the car is driving up. All the sound effects are not captured on camera. Every single thing that you hear in that moment is after the fact.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of work that goes into these movies to include sound. So Andrew, with all that said, out of 10 points, what did you give sound design?
So I gave sound design a 7.5. I'll explain my answer, but what did you give it?
A 7.
A 7. Okay. See, I mean, 7 sounds like a low score considering that it got like 2 Oscar nominations related
Yeah,
to sound
right?
and sound editing, but it's by today's standards, it's, you know, some of the like machine gun sound effects sound very cartoonish.
Yep.
But I tried to like temper my score a little bit with knowing that it was like the 80s.
Yeah, the guns are probably the worst thing about the sound design.
The explosions sound good.
Yep, they did.
The dialogue sounds really good. The music, I think that the originally composed music sounds good, but it's another thing that hurts it in my mind is the originally composed music is not like that iconic tier that we always talk about when we rate sound design. It's not like I hear the Die Hard, even though no matter how many times I've seen it, I don't
Die Hard
hear like the
theme
Die Hard
song.
theme. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hear the Die Hard
I don't
theme in my
even know
head
what that
or
sounds
go and play it. Yeah.
To be honest.
I was just listening to it, so I know a little bit of what it sounds like, but it just doesn't like recur in my head like the.
It's not like Mission Impossible.
It's
theme
not
song
Pirates of
or-
the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's good. It's not distracting.
And in defense, no one is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. One of the best.
Top tier.
It's not Jurassic Park. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that one's good
But
too.
they did, I think, a good job with the selection of songs, the soundtrack.
Yep.
Like that opening song
That's
that Argyle,
what-
I always think about that opening song that Argyle plays. Like
Yeah.
it's just like gets you jumping a little
That's
bit.
what brought my score up a few notches, you know, because like you said, the gunfire is a little cheesy. I don't really remember the punches being that cheesy. So, because that's
It still has that
another
like
thing.
I think
yeah,
kind of
another thing that like happens in like the 80s, 90s movies. But I don't remember it being overwhelming as much as the gunfire. But the songs, like especially like how Christmas songs kept showing up
Yeah.
and stuff, like it cemented the fact that this is a Christmas movie.
And they use like menacing Christmas music too. Like the Ode to Joy that they use is like very ominous
Right.
for the theme for the villain. So
Yep.
I think that they played it into the story and they used the Christmas songs, which is just a load of fun. I also, one sound effect that I really like is when he's banging Carl's head against the pipes.
Yeah.
It's like dong. It's I love that sound. And so I think they did a good job with that part. The pipes, the chain when he throws Carl and like ties a noose around his neck with the chain. It's 80s sound effects. So it wasn't ever gonna be a 10, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was solid. It told the story and it didn't take away from the viewing.
Dude, when he bounces off the side of the that metal wall when he's trying to reach to climb to the air vent, and he's like, dung.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I heard a story apparently that was an accident. The stuntman was trying to grab onto the first one, and he missed and hit the wall, and then they used that take and like had him catch on to the next one because they thought it was like more suspenseful.
See, stuff like that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
When things happen on set that wasn't necessarily the plan, but it ended up being better than the plan.
Yeah. Well, I heard a lot of the lines in the movie too were a little bit improvisational because they were making so many tweaks to the script like day of when filming the movie that some of the lines were
It's got to be so hard to change parts of the script day of because you're filming one day in a 50+ day shoot, you know, and it's like if you change one thing here it's going to affect everything else.
Yeah, you got to keep track of what you
Yeah.
change too. Like, there's full circle moments in this movie where they're like repeating lines back to him. Like,
It's probably where like some of the recent Marvel stuff is kind of slipped, you know,
Yeah.
because there's so many reshoots and all that stuff that it's hard to keep track of all that,
Yeah.
you know.
next category.
Yeah, ready to go to our next category,
Yes.
and that is set and character design. So basically everything you see on screen that's actually there, you know, like the costume design, like what are they wearing? Is it iconic? You know, like does the stuff that they're interacting seem real? And this is out of 5 points. So we don't rate this as high or as valuable as the other 4 categories that we've talked about up to this point. So what did you give this out of 5?
So I think we might differ a little bit more here, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I'm prepared to defend it also. If you think it's high, what did you give it?
Andrew, a 4 out of 5?
You gave it a 4 too, didn't you?
Yeah.
You did this the whole time. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I
Before
thought.
we started this episode, you're like, my opinion is going to be so different than yours.
Yeah, no, I thought you were gonna rate it lower. I
Yeah.
mean, just because like this movie's like holds a special place in my heart. I
Yeah.
thought maybe I was being biased, but
Does that mean I'm being biased?
no. It's a great movie. It has 8.2 on IMDb.
Yeah.
So I give it the score mainly because of the set, because the set is so cool. So fun fact behind
Tell
the
me
story.
about it.
Fun fact.
Give me this
time.
fact. Lay it down.
I had it pulled up on here.
Oh,
The exact.
I gave you a cool setup, you know, like I yelled for like our TikTok that we were about to do, you know. Like,
I'll cut this part out. So I had the exact like address on here. Where did it go? So the filming location for this movie was Fox Plaza, 2121 Avenue of the Stars, Century City, Los Angeles, California, USA. That is what they used for the Nakatomi building. The interiors were filmed on the 29th and 35th floors. This movie is made by Fox, 20th Century Fox. They used the Fox studios in Century City to film the movie. And there was even a legal requirement to like pay a fee for the site. So they paid themselves the fee for the movie that they were shooting.
Making money on both ends. I love it.
They were already under construction on certain floors of the Fox studio, so they used those floors that were under construction to film the scenes that were meant to be that way in the movie. And
That's so cool.
they just added a few things to make it a little bit more cinematic and fill out like the composition of the shot. But they used the actual floors. Like that must have saved them so much money doing it that way. But it's really cool. Nakatomi Tower, the interior like office where they're having the holiday party, is just such a unique set. Like this has got to be one of my top 10 favorite sets of all time. So that's why I gave it a 4. The Nakatomi Tower is just so interesting, so unique. The exterior shots on the outside of the helicopter, the helipad, and then like all these little air vents and ducts and the elevator shaft and like these little hallways, corridors, stairways. Like
Yeah, we went to a lot of locations
in one
while
building.
being at one location.
And they just made the building so unique and interesting, finding new and interesting parts
It
of the
felt
building.
big, right? It felt like the skyscraper that it is.
It felt huge, like especially like the body falling from like 30 floors to crush on a cop car. Like you feel the enormity of the building. They're going up. I think it's like the 30th floor is the main floor where the party takes place, and then the 2 floors above it, 31 and 32, are under construction. So like mainly taking place in those 3 stories of the building. The story takes place in those 3 stories. But it's just so cool, so unique. And then the costumes do also take part in the story as well. I mean, Hans Gruber has a nice fine suit. Mr. Takagi has a nice fine suit, tells us about their characters. Ellis has a fine suit. And then our character, the blue collar worker who we love, John McClane, is wearing like this tank top, no shoes, because of the backstory about the conversation with the guy on the plane. I've been doing it for 7 years. Trust me, I'm a cop. I've been doing it for 11 years. But he actually had, I think it was 13 to 17 different tank tops on set. The costume department had like 17 in different stages of degradation. You can see throughout the film, like it's pure white, gets dirty, and then at the end of it, it's like pure green or brown or black.
Yeah, like a grayish tan.
Fully like destroyed. It has all stages.
I feel like it gets to that point pretty quick.
Yeah. Really, yeah. Also in 2007, Bruce Willis donated the Die Hard tank top that he possessed to the Smithsonian as a part of movie history.
That's cool.
So really cool. But I thought that his outfit becomes iconic, you know, the white tank top and jeans with his sidearm. And I just thought it was really cool to get to see everything he's been through. It's like worn on him, you know, he's bloodied, he's battered, and it's on the clothes. So that's why I gave it such a high score.
Yeah, no, I second all of that. I gave it such a high score because it's just so real, you know, and they use the space very well, and it felt big, you know, and it's really cool too that like they own the building, so that means they could do like literally whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
You know, which that just makes me excited.
Yeah. That's what they're breaking through walls and stuff. They can do whatever they want. Did you know that on the rooftop scene, Alan Rickman, his first interaction with Bruce Willis on that rooftop where he's checking the detonators, they filmed it kind of early on. He jumped off a 3-foot drop and like damaged his like ACL or something. He hurt his knee bad. And he was ordered to like not put any weight on that leg. And then days later, he filmed the scene where he's like addressing all of the hostages and he's putting all his weight on one leg and that other leg's in a brace underneath his suit pants. Like, that's how bad he messed up his knee on a 3-foot drop.
Dang.
Talk about doing your own
Dangerous
stunts.
work.
His biggest stunt in the movie turned out to be that
Well,
thing.
I mean, that's why they're stunt actors.
Because they could delay filming and
Yeah.
hurt other people's livelihoods. You
Right.
know?
Ready to move on to our last category?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so this one is rewatchability. I really like this category too, because this is an important part of movies, right? Like, if you only watch the movie once, or a comparison to like 100 times, like you've watched Die Hard, you know, like
At least 30.
doesn't that make it a better movie?
At least 25.
You know, like if you can rewatch a movie over and over, that just says how good it is. And this one we give it out of 5. So the way we kind of rate this one is, if you were asked 5 times and you weren't doing anything else, it was just to watch this movie, how many times would you say yes to watching this movie out of 5? Andrew, 1? Probably?
One of the easiest answers of my career. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. You could probably tell from listening to the rest of this episode.
Yeah. Can you guess what I would give it?
4?
Dang. Good job.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I figured it'd probably be pretty high. It's a good, really, really enjoyable action
I've only
movie.
actually seen this movie twice.
I feel like it fits your criteria for what you like about movies pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
good movie.
Yep.
Like action, good
Yep.
pacing.
Cinematography, good editing. It was well made. You know, there's not like a lot of mistakes in there. But then the story is like, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's definitely rewatchable. You know, like I could watch this again next year. I could watch it again the year after.
What's great about this movie too is it doesn't take itself too seriously. With characters like Dwayne T. Robinson and the Johnsons, no relation
Yeah.
from the FBI, like there's a lot of humor in this movie. Like it's so funny when Argyle hears on the radio or whatever that the building is being taken over by terrorists, and he's just like he's been like bumping to music in the
Yeah.
car with the teddy bear the whole time. He's like, yeah, baby, of course I'm coming over tonight. My boss thinks I'm going on my way to Vegas, and it's like when he realizes, he's like, oh God. He looks at the bear, he's like, shut it. The movie is funny and the action is great and there's romance. It's just it kills on all fronts. So rewatchable.
Something we haven't talked about yet is how brutal these terrorists really are. And I think it kind of shows the time that this movie was shot in. Because like right away they come in and they shoot the person at the front desk. You know, they as they showed in the trailer, they shoot the owner of the building, you know, of the company. And they do so in brutal fashion, you know, like they're not wasting any time.
Mr. Takagi.
Right. And a lot of movies, I feel like, especially now, like kind of dance around that kind of violence and brutality, you know? And when they don't, it's kind of like rare and whatnot, you know? And I feel like that's an aspect of this movie that I liked, you know, because it's like, these guys are bad.
Yeah. I think
you
it's
know,
so
like,
cool that they made an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
Like R-rated action movies are awesome. We should have more of them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like John Wick, like we lose that factor you're talking about when we make a PG-13 action movie because there's so much cursing in this movie. There's a giant pool of blood where Mr. Takagi's dead body had lain when he returns back to that area. Like that gritty, bloody quality like really makes you feel the tension, the suspense, and the stakes of the action.
That's what I was going to say right there is when they show what they're willing to do, it shows the stakes of this situation.
And he kills him, like Hans Gruber kills Mr. Takagi so quick. He's like, you're not going to give us the code? 3, 2, 1. Like he kills him. You know, it's like, it creates a lot of like,
which
fear of the villain.
At the end when Hans is talking to the wife and he's like, I'm a thief, a great thief. And now that I'm jumping up to kidnapping, you should take this more seriously. You just murdered.
You already
jumped a bunch of people.
Murder is definitely worse.
Yeah. You're being labeled as a terrorist right now. Like, I think you don't need to worry about like being a thief.
You don't need to try to be more menacing.
You're scary enough, man.
A terrorist and getting to be a mass murderer.
Yeah, you're scary. Okay. Yeah, I thought that.
Dude,
was
Holly's
funny.
tough. Holly's tough. Like,
Yeah.
her performance is really good. We didn't even glossed over her in the acting, but I love the scene where he's like, she's facing a killer and a terrorist who we just established how scary he is, and he's like, who put you in charge? She's like, you did. He like cocks his head back. He's like, whoa, who's talking to me like
And he
this?
listened to her. Like, she
Yeah.
had authority of
Yeah.
that situation.
I mean, she deals like Ellis said, like they deal with $1 million deals. Like
Yeah.
she's got to kind of have a cool head in high stress
She's not
situations.
coked up, you know, so
Yeah,
she can.
he does a little better than Ellis.
Yeah.
His life. He shoots Ellis too in cold blood.
Yep.
That seems pretty intense. He's like, Ellis, damn it, tell him you don't know me. Like,
Yeah.
at least he didn't tell him about Holly. You
Right.
know?
I thought that's kind of like where he was going, but it was good that he didn't.
Yeah, he's like, how can you say that after all this time? Oh, he's such a frustrating character, man.
Okay, so that wraps up our categories. So out of the 6 categories, what did this equal for the overall score of the movie for you?
I gave it an 8.0 when you average out my scores.
Okay, out of 10, and I have a 7.5 out of 10. So very close to each other.
Yeah.
On these movies. And from how we were talking before the podcast started and also during the podcast, you seemed like I would have it a little bit lower than that. So are you surprised with my score at all?
I honestly, not their average. I feel like 7.5 is too low.
It's low, right?
Yeah, it sounds worse. Like it sounds worse than when we were going along.
Yeah.
We have a lot of praise for this movie, but
Yeah.
also my 8.0, like an 8 out of 10 is not how I feel about Die Hard in real life. It's more of a 9 out of 10. But this,
Yeah.
like we talked about, our rating scale, we say all the time, it helps us cut the edge off some of the bias.
Right. And that's what we like to do on this show, you know, is like we're not here to just criticize people when making a movie, you know, like we're here to show like and pay respect to the good and the bad parts of this project that we're talking about. And this is a cool way for us to break it down. And
Every movie can't be a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, and
Because then there's no room for like,
well, there's a bunch of movies that we've reviewed on this podcast where it's like, I would have put that way higher or I would have put that way lower.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, when you break it down, like they did a lot of good things,
Yeah.
you know, and it was only like maybe one category that held them back or something like that. One of the next segments that we talk about, which we don't have on every episode of movie reviews or show reviews, but on this one, we do have a segment for it, and that is source code. And this is where we talk about what this show or movie was based on. And in this case, it's a book, right? So, Andrew, do you got some information for us on the source code and how it relates to the movie?
yes. Yeah, so we already talked about this a little bit in the very opening that the movie Die Hard is based on a book. This might be something that not everybody knows.
I didn't know that.
So it says in the beginning of the movie, it's easy to miss, but it says that it's based on a book written by Roderick Thorpe. And Roderick Thorpe actually wrote this book as a sequel to a book called The Detective. So the original book is called The Detective, which was adapted into a movie where the main character, what was his name?
Excuse me.
His name is Joe
Montana.
So the main character's name is not John McClane. The main character of this story, it originated in The Detective. His name is Joe Leland. That's what it was. So Joe, I got it.
Look at
So Joe Leland was originally portrayed in the movie The Detective, I think in 1969, by Frank Sinatra. So Roderick Thorpe specifically wrote the sequel and named it Nothing Lasts Forever, with the intention of a second movie being made where the character would again be played by Frank Sinatra. But the way things turned out, obviously completely different. They changed the name from Nothing Lasts Forever to Die Hard. Frank Sinatra was not going to return, so they changed the name of the character. Even though they're technically the same person in terms of the book, the character went from Joe Leland to John McClane, and then they considered a bunch of people for this role. Like I already mentioned, they considered Frank Sinatra, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Richard Gere, and then they finally landed on Bruce Willis. And I'm so happy that it went that way. They rewrote the character to John McClane. Let me tell you about a little bit of differences between the book and the movie before we go on to anything else. I thought you were covering your ears. Like, no spoilers. I'm about to buy Nothing Lasts Forever and read it tonight.
I'm interested.
So the book is about this older, like hard-boiled detective who like I said, his name Joe Leland. He was a pilot fighter in World War II before he came back to the States and became a detective. In the events of the first book, he goes through this case and catches this person who turns out to be wrongly accused. So he has that bad notoriety going into the next book, Nothing Lasts Forever. But in the book, he flies to meet not his wife, but his daughter. His daughter's working at this new company. It takes place in Texas instead of Los Angeles. So he goes to meet her at her new company in Texas where she has this asshole boss who is really rich. And they're celebrating Christmas, but also celebrating the closure of a huge deal where they're starting to build a bridge in Chile. And Joe Leland is like disappointed in his daughter that she's kind of giving into this like wealthy lifestyle and becoming like a different person than the person he recognizes, which is kind of similar in some aspects of the movie where John McClane's going to visit his wife. In both stories, the daughter and the wife have this new fancy watch. Only in the book, the daughter bought it for herself to celebrate this deal. In the movie, obviously, it was bought by the company, Ellis and Mr. Takagi.
Sounds like nothing was the same.
It was changed quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
So then you get this villain comes to the party. And instead of Hans Gruber, his name is Anton Gruber. And he is actually a terrorist with political goals in mind. He is against this company for building this bridge in Chile. And then a lot of the same events from there unfold. Like Leland / McClane, they escape with just like no shoes and their sidearm and a tank top. And then they fight terrorists. And another difference in the book, he doesn't wear the shoes of the first terrorist he kills because he's not comfortable wearing a dead man's shoes, not because they're too small. Then, like,
Which is better reason. I would have definitely put on the shoes, even if it's from a dead person, because
you don't want to be barefoot.
Yeah.
Especially in the life or death scenario.
Yeah.
But the difference in the book too is that all the story is told from the first person perspective of Joe Leland, meaning we don't get all these like drawn out other perspectives like we do in the movie. We don't see outside the building. You're still going to get the conversations with like the deputy chief and Sergeant Al Powell
common in
books. Yeah, first person. You're still going to get the conversation through the walkie, but you're not going to like see their perspective in the book. So it's all through Leland leading up to the point where he has the big confrontation. Ultimately, he kills Gruber, but in the book, he kills Gruber and the daughter gets mortally wounded by a shot to the stomach from Gruber as well. So his daughter dies, but then he goes to...
Dies?
Yes. His
I wasn't
dies.
ready for that. Oh my gosh.
Spoiler alert.
I was just getting attached to this lady.
But then he actually unfurls like this mystery where they were actually going through shady practices and building this bridge in Chile. And like his daughter and the owner of the company were like all like, I think his name's Mr. Rivers or something. They're all like complicit in this scheme, and his daughter's watch like somehow implicates her in like a villainous way. So like the movie paints them all out on the like the Nakatomi side as like villains as well. And like maybe Gruber had like a point to be going after them, even though he's going about it through the wrong methodology.
Confusing. What a mind trip that is.
But yeah, there's a lot of like key differences in that aspect. Argyle's not in the book at all.
It's like loosely based. Like,
yeah, they changed it a lot.
Even got credit.
They changed it a lot. But
kept a few names, kept a watch, kept a, like.
Well, he's still going to visit his family member at her place of business where she got a new job on Christmas Eve, fighting a bunch of terrorists who are taking over the building. So and they kept a lot of the action, like the action set pieces that they put in the movie are straight out of the book, like climbing through the elevator, jumping to get in the air vent, the explosions off the roof, things like that are all the same from the book.
Yeah. Okay, before we wrap up this episode, thanks for watching for this far. Like we're already an hour and 10 minutes in, maybe a little bit longer. We really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you leave a comment down below of what was your favorite part of this movie, and out of our categories that we have, what was your favorite category? I guess written on my highest score was from story, and I believe you had a few 8s, and so yours would be what, story and acting, I think you had as 8s. So
yeah,
leave a comment down below. What was your favorite aspect of the story and of the movie itself? But then I believe Andrew has some fun facts that he wants to
let's go through these.
Spit off, and then we'll kind of wrap it up from there, and you can enjoy the rest of your Christmas with your family and friends.
So 5 things you didn't know about Die Hard.
We need a jingle for that.
Some of those we already went over throughout the episode,
Well,
so you might have heard a few of them. But Die Hard's obviously based on a book called Nothing Lasts Forever, written by Roderick Thorpe. The movie has 4 Oscar nominations, which Arron told us about. I didn't know that until recently.
That's crazy.
And I love this movie. They use real explosions on the exterior of the building. The set for the movie is the Fox Studios set from Century City.
So
and
cool.
Alan Rickman did not want to be cast as a villain for this first role in a feature film. So actually, all 5 of those we already said throughout
Wow.
the, by the time
you should have like kicked me or something, been like,
By the
hey, that segment that we were gonna do, we actually talked about all of them. But hey, here we are.
you know.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching.
Before we close out,
Yeah, what do you got?
I did want to also thank a YouTube page called Cinefix because they gave me a lot of the details related to the differences between the book and the movie, so I wanted to acknowledge them for that.
Very nice. Yeah. You didn't read the book, did you?
No, I did not read nothing last time
Yeah.
because I would have had to read the detective first.
I clearly did not read the book. It's hard enough for Andrew to get me to watch movies sometimes, let alone read a book.
But you do what you have to do.
I do what I have to do. For
yeah.
you, for the fans.
One final reminder that we want to ask everybody to hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends and family. It makes a huge difference for the show. You can hit our link in our description for this episode to see everything for us, our merchandise, any of our other social media pages. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're everywhere. So make sure to check us out and follow us on all those platforms because it costs you nothing, and why not do it? It makes us happy. It makes us smile.
That's right. It puts food on our plates.
It will.
Eventually.
But
that's the goal.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate everyone, especially if they made it this far. And with that said, I hope you guys have a happy holiday. And that's a wrap.